All right there. Cliff, can you hear me?
I can hear you. How's it going?
Pretty good about yourself.
Doing great. Doing great.
Oh, nice to meet you here. I'm a former coworker of Tiffany's here from Black and Beach.
Okay. Okay.
I know her and also the vice president of her Left Brains Foundation here.
Got you. Got you. Well, it's definitely a pleasure speaking.
All right, I appreciate you joining us here. For those of you who don't know, Left Brains is basically it's a engineering introduction to high school students at risk areas, meaning like urban areas, central city areas, and trying to get them into engineering and other STEM careers here. So that's one of those things that we're trying to accomplish here at Left Brains. So, but we're starting this. We call this like a podcast series here, basically
Okay.
interviewing people of various STEM type careers here in that type of, the technology, engineering, IT industry as well here. So,
Oh,
so Cliff here, go ahead and give an introduction here that Tiffany's able to provide me. Cliff's an American actor, screenwriter, producer, director, and sound engineer from Oklahoma City. He co-founded Studio 405 alongside his brother Ralph to produce movies, A Father's Love, and The Next Big Thing. Clifton is a known for his work on several movies and reality TV shows such as Unplanned, All Creatures Here Below, Christmas on Display, Queer Eye, Military Makeover, and Transit. Anything you want to add to that? Start with.
no, I mean that's pretty much it. I mean, I've worked on several projects. But if you just start like listing down, it's just like you just get elongated and just name dropping basically. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's almost impossible to say everything that I've worked on. But those are some of the fun projects that I worked on that I really enjoyed. I enjoy all, just in case anybody,
Yeah.
well, I enjoyed all the projects, but those are some of the recent ones that I've worked on that, you know.
Okay, great. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Steven Stinger. I'm, like I said, the vice president of Left Brains here. I currently work at Black and Beach. Worked there almost 10 years. Before that, born and raised in Kansas City, and went to Mizzou for my bachelor's and master's in civil engineering. So, all right. Well, we'll go ahead and get to the questions here. These are ones that Tiffany was nice to provide. I believe, Cliff, you had kind of a chance to look at them as well to kind of be prepared
Yeah.
here for questions, which is always a good way here. My first time really doing this type of interview. I've interviewed for like hiring people, but it's a little different situation there. So,
Oh,
but yeah, excited to try this out for the first time. So, first question here. How did you acquire a love for videography, and how many years have you been in the industry?
well, it started off as a kid, and my father used to take my brother and I to go see Star Wars. Classic, so I just kind of fell in love with film there. But my actual also as a kid, like my mom bought a video camera so we could record our sports games, things like that. I've always been a sports guy, and just be able to play with the camera. We used to make our own little commercials, and just it just kind of transcended from there. And probably around in my early 20s, my brother was like, "Hey, let's do the film thing," because we've always played with cameras. And then he took his financial aid money, bought a camera, and we kind of just start off on a path that way. So I've been in this for about 15 plus years or so. I've never really, it's around 05, 06 is kind of where we started. Started off small, like doing music videos, doing weddings and things like that. Like any way we can just actually just start shooting things. Then we tried to shoot a feature film. It didn't really know what we was doing, but we
Hmm.
just, got a camera. We got a bunch of guys that wanted to be filmmakers as well. Actually, when I actually Kansas, I live in Kansas City now. I'm from
Okay.
Oklahoma. So I've been in Kansas City about the same period of time. So when I moved to Kansas City, that was the firm decision to say like, hey, let's do film. So
Okay,
that's
great. So it's not like pretty much as a kid, you always kind of knew you wanted this or had an idea you want to do something like
yeah.
this.
First was sports. I always wanted to be a sports guy. Like I wanted to, play basketball,
Yeah, yeah.
ball, but not
Yeah, I
everybody.
was that same way, but being at that level,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
same
I
for
always
me here.
worked for myself business wise, so that kind of transcended, having my own production company. So
Okay,
I'm
great,
still,
great, nice. Yeah, it's kind of something for me as an engineer. First thing I like start playing with Legos and bricks as a kid, and then started building like forts out of like plywood and 2x4s. Kind of things like you kind of start as a kid, get an idea of wanting to do something like that, and as you grow up and kind of see what you can, that type of fascination. And for me, is engineering, specifically structural engineering. So, all right, great.
Good.
Moving on here, what would you say are the necessary steps to shoot a production?
Shooter production. So, I mean, there's several ranges of like shooting wise, because you can go big production where you have, you know, maybe 1,000 people on set, but then you can have a production where there's 8 people on set. Um, but really, I mean, of course, you gotta, you know, have a crew, you know, cameras, things like that, lights, locations. I mean, it's a lot that really goes into film that people really don't get to see. And there've been shows that actually kind of shows the behind the scenes, kind of like what it actually takes to shoot a production. But I mean, really, I say really drive, because I've been on sets where it's just 2 people, and mostly like my brother and I, and we'll 2-man a team and like get stuff done. But really, you know, drive, knowledge, you know, always equipment. You have to have equipment. You know, whether you're buying or renting. Um, but really, I say like a solid team. If you have the right people, you can get some amazing things done. And I've worked with some really really great people and some really projects that, you know, when I thought I was, you know, not that I knew everything, but I, you know, you always learn something from somebody, and it's always good to have a good team around you. But as far as like production wise, our most important is having a good team around you.
Yeah, definitely. All right, great. What would you say is the science behind videography?
The science. Uh, I'd have to say lighting. Lighting is very important as far as sound. I mean, as far as movies wise, sound is important. Um, because lighting is so important that um it's just one of those things that you really have to study and really know what you're doing as far as lighting. And like me, like I have a basic knowledge for lighting, and it's more like a director of photography, DP, and that's just
Mhm.
really, and that's what my brother does. Is, you know, understanding lighting and what lighting does and what you're actually creating. Like it's almost like painting, like you're painting a picture. And it's a DP's job to make sure the picture is beautiful, or, you know, and it's just like, or set direct, you know what I'm saying, like set design, where you have, you know, certain things and certain colors match with certain things, and certain things like things you don't really think about, like wardrobe, that will make a character either good or bad. And there's little things that we don't think about as viewers versus people who are behind the cameras, that they understand, that they know, okay, if they're wearing this color, or if they're wearing this, it matches this, or it makes the audience feel this way. And it's a bunch that goes into those little bitty details that make a movie, or make a show, or make, you know, a webisode or things like that.
Yeah, the little details. I know they give Oscars for a little bit of everything. You know, a lot of people don't care outside like the big five, but there's a lot of Oscars given to those people for set design, wardrobe, sound editing, sound mixing,
Yeah,
stuff like that. So that's maybe the underappreciated side of movies. Definitely an important part there for sure. So,
yeah. I work in sound. That's what I mostly do now, is sound.
mhm.
And like very, it's very important, but it's because you don't, people don't really go to the movie theater and be like, oh, I wonder who did the sound on that. You
Yeah.
know, it's just, you know, most people, they think about directors, or like, oh, that the shots were
Yeah.
amazing. You know, so yeah, I definitely understand what this sounds. So
Yeah. Well, and speaking of lighting too, of course, there's a lot of complaints during that one Game of Thrones episode, the big battle scene where everyone thought it was just
yeah,
so dark. It's like it's such a great battle, but I couldn't see it. So
yeah.
lighting's important. You know, even for the top of the top seem to have some issues with it. So
Yeah.
definitely an important aspect.
In 2021, that shouldn't happen, but you know, it did
Yeah.
happen. So just,
Yeah.
it was like a C stand or something left on Game of Thrones as well. That I think that, you know, it's like that's somebody's job, but you know, it happens. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
All right. Well, what would you say is the trending video equipment currently?
Trending video equipment. Well, let's see. Red just dropped the new camera that's what is it? The Komodo. It's a basically it's a miniature Red, and it's basically they were trying to design it for like a craft camera. So because a lot of people like they do camera with like action scenes like with GoPros, and if you're shooting on like a Red or an Aries, and even though GoPros are great footage, but sometimes it really just doesn't match. So they
Mhm.
can do a camera where it actually it's smaller and it costs less, and it's just basically they made a great product where people are actually just starting to actually like shoot on it instead of just saying, "Oh, I'm using this as a crash camera." So it's a lot cheaper. It runs about I think it's like 6,000, and you can actually just start like shooting right away. Well, versus cameras can get expensive where you spend 50, 60,000 for camera versus having all the accessories, all the lenses, and it gets pretty expensive. So that's pretty trending right now. Then Sony just dropped the A7S3, and that's around 3,500, and that's another like one of the cameras that are just kind of is transcending because you're getting great quality pictures, and it's not really hitting for those high prices that people are used to paying to own a camera to say, oh, I'm going to make a movie, and it's really about being effective as far as like shooting and getting the bang for your buck. So
Mhm.
and that's like on the camera side. And since I'm an audio guy as well, I'm gonna say a couple things that are trending.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So Tentacle Sync just dropped the what is it? I got some notes here. Tentacle, what are they? They just dropped the Track E. So so basically, it's kind of a pro consumer wireless mic, and so normally with the sound mixer you have the wireless lavs that go into a mixer, and some projects you may not have the option of having an actual sound guy on set as far as like budget wise, and so basically it's a recorder, a lav that records straight to the actual tentacle, and it's very like it's trending right now just because it's very high quality. It has a, a float track where basically you don't have to worry about gain. And for those who don't know about gain, that's just like your levels of audio. Like if it can be distorted. Like if you ever had a speaker and somebody like speaks loud and it kind of gets distorted where you can't hear them, and it's just like transcending right now because it's giving you great audio, and you don't have to be a sound mixer professional work with this item. Like it has an app that you can work with, and basically you almost plug in and kind of go. So that was one of those things that are like transcending right now. So
Okay. Yeah, definitely quality. It's one of those things like you said, bang for your buck. We went to Australia and went scuba diving, and there was a cameraman with our tour group, and he said his camera was like the same one they used with National Geographic. And of course, I had a GoPro with me, which at the time was like the best GoPro. I think it was like the Black Hero 7. And I looked at pictures for what I took versus what he took, and it's just night and day.
yeah,
Mine was probably, I don't know what the GoPro was, a couple hundred
yeah.
bucks like that compared to probably I'm guessing a $10,000 to $15,000 underwater camera view. So,
Oh
you know,
yeah.
a
I
lot
do.
more money, but like the pictures are like you can tell there's the
Yeah,
quality is like spot
yeah,
on. It's like a travel movie. So
yeah. But GoPro for what it's worth, I mean, it's good for like action
it's
shots. Like
good. Yeah.
hard, you don't have to worry about falling off or damaging, or
Yeah.
I'm screwed because I dropped a $5,000 camera. So
Yeah, for sure. So, all right. Well, what are your biggest pet peeves in your industry?
biggest pet peeves. For one, like most people, when you say you do video or things like that, they also think you're a photographer. Now, I don't mind helping my friends out because I do understand lighting, and it's similar, but it's different. So, like if I was to take pictures for someone, a professional would know the difference. Someone who's not a professional probably wouldn't, because I can light it where it's lit beautifully and it looks good. But a professional photographer would be like, no, I see mistakes, things like that. But though I do, I don't mind. I help friends out all the time. But a lot of times, people think if you're in that field that you also are a photographer as well, and
Mhm.
not the case. So that's kind of one of the biggest pet peeves in you know in my industry.
Okay, makes sense. So for those watching, photographer, videographer, different things.
Different things, yes, similar, but
Some are different. So
yeah. So, I mean,
generic,
it's all it's
yeah.
understandable. of lighting. Lighting is different. Like you light
Mhm.
differently versus video.
Yeah. And certain things are probably more important to video versus photographer. Like engineering, I'm a structural and I care about certain things as opposed to mechanical. They care about different things. So,
Yes.
important, just different aspects of the profession. So, all right, great. So what advice would you give to an up and coming videographer or someone who's wanting to get into this profession?
I would say like actually like kind of have an idea like what field you want to go in, because there's so many different fields in the industry. You could say most people when they come in, like, I want to be a director. But you really got to know like how to direct or what you're actually doing. It's just not say, oh, I'm going to direct and I'm just going to tell actors exactly what I want. Um, but actually having actual an idea like what kind of direction you want to go. And if you don't, the best thing to do is actually get on set. Um, there's several ways like you can look in like Facebook, different Facebook groups. There's people who like put ad lists on like Craigslist. There's several like ad agencies where people can actually get on set and PA, and you can actually see like how production is made. And it's kind of quicker than actually going to school, just because you learn so much more actually being on a physical set. Not saying don't go to school, because that you can learn that way as well, but actually getting on set and actually seeing what's going on, and so that way you can kind of get an idea if you don't have an idea like what you know. So I mean that's getting on someone's physical set, even if it's like PAing for free or just picking up equipment, whatever the case may be. Getting on
The
set,
dirty
like
jobs. Yeah.
yeah, you learn so much just being on set.
Okay, great, great. So, so these days we've got a lot of, we'll call them amateur videographers who basically have a YouTube channel or Facebook Live videos. We'll call them, you can call them influencers or whatever. Like you got all levels. Those who actually get paid millions of dollars to do this, as opposed to just amateurs just doing it for fun. But what would you say is the most common mistakes that you see of these, we'll call them videographers, even though I'm not sure if you consider that as an insult to you or not. But these people using social media platforms to share their content.
Yeah. Well, common mistake I think I see people do is it's more of a following thing. Because let's say that someone comes out with a YouTube and not saying that you can't do what somebody else does, but it's almost because most people are, when they get discovered from these platforms like Instagram, YouTube, they're doing something new, and that formula worked for them, and that formula doesn't always work for everybody else. And so just because someone got discovered, making a video on YouTube and get discovered, that may not be your um and I think a lot of people are like kind of copying someone else's formula instead of trying to create niche their own path. And though that can work, but I think if someone kind of creates their own niche, then I think that would probably help them better versus trying to copy someone else's formula. If that makes sense to you.
Yeah, yeah. Basically, it's kind of maybe not as much originality with some people. Now there are those
Yeah,
who who are creating new stuff, stuff that comes out of nowhere.
yeah,
Um, it's a TikTok video with the guy who's on the skateboard with the
yeah,
ocean spray juice. It's like that's completely random, original, and people
yeah,
love it. So
yeah. And it's funny because videos are kind of mimicking that. It's not exactly, but it's kind of mimicking what he did. And so yeah.
all right. So, kind of going back to technology advancements here, what would you be considered the best skill set of technology to learn as maybe as like your first skill set or
First,
something?
and that's also one of those things that is depending on like what field you're actually like getting into. Um,
Sure, yeah.
like if you want to be a director, of course you would have to, because I don't really think there's a way to just say this is how you direct. It's kind of
Yeah,
more styles and things like that. But really,
not a
like
ladder path, a zigzag path up.
yeah, so it's kind of really understanding like what you want to do. But as far as film wise, I'm gonna go back to lighting. Like lighting is important. Lighting is one of those things. is unforgiving. That if you really don't know what you're doing, and especially if you're you're in control, either bring in somebody who understands lighting or understand lighting. Like lighting is very important as far as like the actual look, and really just understanding like what you have, and what are you working with as far as like what camera you have, what is its strengths, what weaknesses, and really going from there.
Okay, great. So for someone just wanting to get into this industry there, of course, there's no typical approach, but what would be the recommendation? Is it better to maybe go to college and get a certain degree? Is it move to Hollywood and start there, or one of these other bigger production places? What would you say is your recommended path to get into this
Industry. I mean, you can move to LA, you can move to Atlanta, things like that. But surprisingly, there's a lot of film industries like Kansas City. There's a Kansas City market. There's an Oklahoma City market. And really, it's just finding out who's doing what in your city, in your town, and really just doing whatever you can, like reaching out to people and saying, "Hey, and I do anything." Like, I like reach out to people and just like try to get on set, whether it's for free. Like, hey, I'll be an extra hand. I don't mind a light. I don't mind holding the camera. I don't mind getting water. I don't mind, whatever the case may be. Is really just find out what people are doing in your area, whether it's Facebook, anything that's really like listing like, hey, we're doing productions here and there. And that's really what I suggest is find out, because you can move somewhere, but then you got to think about like, are you going to be able to actually afford to live that place? Like you go to
Yeah.
LA is expensive.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
got to afford to live in. And it's almost like who you know, and the more connections you make, and you might have a better chance of getting knowledge in the city that you're in versus going to LA, where everybody in LA is trying to be in the film industry. You're one in a million there. You one in 1,000 in the city that you're living in.
True, true. And cheaper cost living here, I think, of all like the big cities, Kansas City is one of the lowest considering like house prices, gas prices, stuff like that. So I love it here. It works well for me. I like to travel, of course. My base here. So
Yeah, and not to discourage people from not following your dreams and saying like, oh, I want to move to LA, be an actor, or I want to go to LA and start doing film. You definitely gotta follow your heart and follow your path. Yeah.
yeah.
And that's
Indeed.
being a filmmaker, like it's especially if you're trying to do it full time, it's definitely a grind, it's definitely a process. And making the right connections, and you may not start making six figures your first year being in film, because like I said, you may have to start off working on somebody's set for free, and and then 12 days. Most of them, you're working on a set or reality show, it's
Mhm.
12 hours. you know some people may not be cut out for that, but
Yeah, for sure. Speaking just of Kansas City, is there any recommended either sites, blogs, publication, or anything like that for anyone who's interested in finding out what's going on in Kansas
um
City
yeah.
areas? Anything you recommend?
So if you actually get on Facebook and you Google, I think it's Kansas City film, I think.
Okay.
um yeah, and there's several. There's ones for there's KC Crew, I think. There's a Kansas Film Commission or something like that. And there's also one for actors in Kansas City. So if you just Google Kansas City, there's a bunch of lists that you just basically join, and they just kind of really like just detail like, hey, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that. And it's just a community as far as
Okay.
like got jobs from there. Like people recommended me for different jobs and things like that. And then like, oh hey, this person recommended you. Or I may see a listing. It's like, hey, I'm looking for a DP, or I'm looking for an audio guy, and I just reply back like, what are some things you've been in? And I reply back and get a job. So
Okay.
definitely, Facebook is definitely a way that you can get started as far as like finding communities in on Facebook.
Okay. Great. All right. And well, our final question here is what is your latest project you're working on and when it will be featured?
Okay, so I just got done at the end of the year working on a show, Military Makeover, with Montel Williams, and that should be dropping in a couple of months. I believe the last season is actually airing right now as we speak. I could be wrong; it could be over with. Um, I just got done. Let's see what else. I got done shooting before that. It's a movie called Christmas Comes Home, and that's going to drop later this year. Um, I'm not sure if it's going to be in theaters or if it's going to drop on Lifetime, but it should be dropping sometime this year. I'm also just got done shooting. Well, it's been ongoing for a couple of years, but it's actually on HBO Max right now. It's called Trans Hood. It's actually a very good story, and it's actually was shot here in Kansas City. But that's on HBO Max right now as we speak. It's actually pretty good. I'm about halfway through as far as my busy schedule. I've been watching because little episodes here. Um, but it's actually very good. Well, I say episodes, but it's a basically a documentary movie. I don't say episodes, but I'm halfway through. But it was a very fun project to work on, and I was fortunate to work on the last couple of years here in Kansas City.
Okay, great. Look forward to those here. So, if there's any way, if someone wants to contact you, is there a social media you use more than others? If someone wants to ask you a question in the future here or see what new stuff you're working on?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook. You can just reach out Facebook, Cliff Dumas. You'll see my picture. There's another guy, Cliff Dumas, on Facebook, but he looks like me, so he can't confuse us. Yeah, Facebook is really the best way to reach me. I'm on Instagram, but my Instagram is more just personal. Like I do a couple, a little bit of business. Every now and then I get a little sneak peek of what I'm doing on set. Like I may add to my story while I'm on set.
Okay.
But mostly Facebook is the best place. So if you Google Cliff Dumas, my picture will pop up. It'd probably be me in some type of hat. I'm a hat guy, so you'll see me. You'll see my face. So
All right. Sounds great. All right. So again, if people want to contact Cliff later on, check him out on Facebook here. Cliff, thanks for the time today. Really appreciate it. Pretty insightful stuff here. And for everyone else, we'll see you next time.
all right, thanks for having me.
All right. Take care all. Bye.